Welcome to the Focus on Why podcast. I'm Amy Rowlandson and I ask my guests one simple question. Why? Focusing on the importance of why, I share with you the relatable, uplifting and inspiring conversations I have with people from all walks of life. This podcast will encourage you to focus on your why to enable and empower you to achieve the success you desire. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why. Before we get started, are you thinking of creating a podcast or are you a podcast host already? As a podcast strategist, I can help you to launch or relaunch a purposeful and profitable podcast, which will inspire, entertain, and educate a global audience. Simply book in a one-to-one call with me right now via the Calendly link in the show notes, and together we'll focus on the purpose of your podcast. Today on Focus on Why, I am joined by David Roberts. Hello, David. How are you, my fellow podcaster?
I'm very well, thanks. I'm very well. How are you?
Yeah, good. Another podcaster all about purpose. It's music to my ears. I'm really looking forward to having this conversation.
Likewise.
So tell me, what is it you're doing at the moment, David?
Currently, most of my time is spent running a company called New Heat. So we're a underfloor heating and renewables company. The purpose of that company is to help people to heat homes in a better way. So I've been with New Heat for about six, 7 years now, and I've taken that through a bit of a journey, acquiring it from the founders, and then running it as an owner, or a part owner, private equity backed, and then we sold to Trade. We're now owned by a PLC. That happened just over a year ago, and I'm now running the business. So I've sort of gone from employee to shareholder to employee again. And it's a great business. There's some amazing people who work as part of that business. So it's not just a great product, but it's also a really fantastic culture, and with some fantastic people there. So yeah, that's my main focus at the moment is continuing to build and grow that business, but also part of what really floats my boat is seeing other people succeed. And I kind of realized a good few years ago now that for me, if I'm working for a company, or if I'm part of a team, or if I'm doing something with other people, if I can see a link between the purpose of that organization and my own purpose, and that those values line up, then I can be fully charged, fully motivated, and it can be a real happy marriage, because you're going in the same direction. And so I started my podcast. It was called People with Purpose. It launched in February of this year, 2022. And the reason I'm doing that is because I think it's really important for people to look at what they're doing with their time, with their working time, if you like, for want of a better phrase, and to really value that time and understand that it's not just about trading time for money, if you like. It's about making a difference, and you can be much more happy and fulfilled in what you do if you can see that link between what you spend most of your time doing and what the meaningful changes that you want to make in the world. So really the podcast is partly about getting that message across and talking to other people and learning and all those sorts of things. But also it's a bit of accountability for me, because I've got lots of thoughts in my head, and have, from running businesses for a few years now, that it's everyone says, "Oh, I'm going to write a book one day," and sitting down and writing a book is not something that I've ever managed to do. So talking about it, I'm hoping will help me to get some of these thoughts out of my head as well. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Fantastic. And I just want to go back to the purpose and the link to your values, and the link that you've made a connection with your business, your current business, and your values. How did that manifest? Was that a sort of easy for you to understand? Had you read about it, or did you just know that your values were to be focused on first?
Yeah. So when I was looking at joining New Heat, I I knew that the founders wanted to retire, and they were looking for somebody who was going to sort of continue the business in the same spirit and ethos with which they started it. So they were having a good long hard look at me, and I was having a good long hard look at them, and it helped really because it was always important to me. But having, but both of you looking at it from that perspective really dialed up the importance of it. And I suppose when I was, it's probably the early 2000s. I was working for a business and I was doing a job that I enjoyed, and the people there were great, but there was something a little bit toxic about the way the business was being led. And that was, I suppose, the first time I left a company because I didn't feel comfortable in that environment. It didn't feel like a healthy environment for me. It didn't feel like an environment where I could thrive. I didn't work any less hard, but it just didn't feel right. And then it was only really then, again, sort of about 7 or 8 years after that, where I noticed the change. There was a change in ownership in the company that I was working for, and with that change of ownership came a different ethos and a different set of values. And again, I began to feel uncomfortable. And that's when I first started talking about, I got the golden thread between the values of the organization that I work for and my own values. And so we, at New Heat, we in 2018, so I joined in 2015, and the values, there was a good fit, and it was all working pretty well. But I really wanted to understand what the feeling was and what the thought process was in all the people that worked there, and also amongst our customers. So we asked everybody. Okay, how does it feel to work here? What's your experience like of working with New Heat? What do you think about we asked our customers, what do you think about the service that you get, the people, the response? What does it think, feel, smell? Like, and then we tried to then collect all that feedback and then distill it into words that kind of made sense to us. And so our values at New Heat are integrity and diligence. So integrity is about doing the right thing. Diligence is about getting it right, and we provide a bespoke product, so we have to get it right. Empowerment is about making sure that everyone feels free to challenge, free to stretch and grow and to innovate. And nurture is about caring and concern for each other and for our customers. And if I think about, I can't think of a closer fit really between the values of an organization and my own values than those 4 words. And it's quite interesting when you sort of talk to people about values, and integrity can be quite a controversial one, because everyone should have integrity. It should be a no-brainer. But actually, I think if you say it and then you behave, because you behave like that, and because your customers are saying that you behave like that, and that then you get the opportunity to reinforce it and make it more real and drive it up a level. And it's in those very small interactions between people, between teams. So in a business of a certain size, you get that kind of tension between sales and operations, and the salespeople sell something that we can't deliver and all that. We don't have any of that in New Heat because we all work with this integrity, and we all work together on it. Now, I'm not to say you never get those discussions, because you do, but we've got a way of managing and having those conversations up front in a very open way, rather than it going on in the background and becoming a sort of a source of discontent. And don't get me wrong, it's not perfect, and it never will be. But what it gives you is that ability to, and that common language, if you like, to have those conversations, to make sure you're doing things, the right things in the right way. So that's how it works.
Fabulous. And your particular own values as well, David, what are those?
So I've got 3 words that I am working with at the moment, and it's inspire, empower, and energize. So I think they for me are things that if I look at what I'm doing, if I'm finding inspiration or being able to inspire others, then I'm this feels very true to myself. And the empowerment is, I suppose, if I think about moments in my life where I felt that sort of emotion, that kind of happiness or that joy, it's quite often come from seeing people do things that they didn't think was possible, or maybe even me being amazed by what somebody's done. So, when was the last time I cried at the theatre? I think I do it most of the. I'm the sort of person that has to kind of, quickly dab my eyes before the lights come up, so that no one sees that I'm having a good old cry. But I think it's Matilda, which is on stage in London, and you see these young children with this amazing talent, but doing these amazing things. So that makes me cry, because you sort of see people really kind of almost surprising themselves, and the look on their faces when they finish the performance is just incredible. But again, it's not just people on the stage; it's people at work. When you see people doing things that they didn't think they could do, and that kind of elation that they get, that comes from them being empowered to take a risk. That comes from them being encouraged to learn something and to stretch themselves and to do something different. So I love that. And then energize. I think energy's at the heart of everything, and there's quite a lot of energy that gets wasted, expended on things like worrying, on things like negativity, on things like complaining or blaming. And so the sort of energize that I'm into is taking those negatives and turning them into a positive. So think about a battery. You've got the negative and you've got the positive end of a battery, and the energy flows through it. So it's how you can kind of harness that energy as a force for good, to make a difference. So those are my values that I'm or the current labels for my values at the moment.
So are they aspirational as well as ones that you are enacting at the moment?
Definitely, and it's that they take me towards a direction, and I'll probably sit down twice a year. Not probably, I will definitely sit down twice a year, and it's normally when I'm on holiday. So my family laughs at me. I kind of disappear off with my laptop or a notepad or something like that, and I'm sort of thinking about my values and thinking about what's changed and what did I write down last time. So I do it at Christmas and I do it in the summer when I go on holiday. But those three words have sort of stuck with me now for certainly the last 3 years anyway. I used to have quite a few. I used to have more words, and I found it quite helpful just to focus on a few, because I'm the kind of person that gets a bit distracted and excited by new things, and that can mean I can lose a bit of focus. But yeah, so they're the ones that are sticking with me now, and the way I think about it is, okay, so what's important to me now, but what's also important to me for the next 12 months. So they do guide me into the future, if you like, rather than just being very, 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 very now.
And why would the family laugh at you, seeing that you've been doing this for several years now and seeing the results that ensue?
Well, they laugh at me most days, to be honest. So it is something that they enjoy doing. They enjoy laughing at me, and there's a sort of a slight roll of the eyes that comes with it, because my daughters are 16 and 18, and what they've been through the last few years. I know that we've all been through, some challenging times, and with restrictions and all those sorts of things. I think they quite like the fact that I do it, and I did set up as well a sort of a family vision meeting as well for us to have, because actually it's really important that you and your family, or you and your it was particularly in the family unit. If you're in a family unit, if you're particularly purpose driven and mission driven, and no one else in the family knows what you're up to, or what your aspirations are, then you can kind of drift apart. You can be spending all of your time, because part of the reason why I do what I do is because I want my family to benefit, my kids to benefit in the same way as the other people will from whatever it is I end up achieving in life. But if there's no connection there, then Dad's just off in his own little world again, and so having those conversations, I think, is important, and being able to laugh about it is a really good tonic. And we're all different, aren't we? It's amazing when I've got two daughters, like I say, and they're both so different to each other. And that there's an artist called Mr. Bingo, who's produced a piece of work called Mum and Dad, and it's a Venn diagram of two circles, and it's got the worst bits of Dad, the worst bits of Mum, and then me is the bit in the middle where it kind of goes. So it's a kind of a sideways look at that. But you end up with these completely unique human beings who will respond to some of what you do and some of what you say, and not others. And invariably, it's about the way you put that across. So actually being laughed at by your children, I think is a good thing. Well, it certainly is in our family anyway, because it gets that whole kind of reality of life in there, and relationships are so important, and being able to be open and have fun even at the simple things or at the serious things is great. It takes the pressure off.
So I guess with that Venn diagram could also be the overlap of the best bits too, right? Of
course it is. And Mr. Bingo is a satirist who actually refused to come on my podcast, but he did at least reply. So I don't really do podcasts, but it is exactly the best of, and yeah. So it is interesting when you look at people, because people are definitely the product of where they came from, but also they're the product of the environment that they find themselves in. And I think that's why having a life purpose for me is a very important reference point, because there might be times in your life where you're unhappy or feeling unduly challenged or abused or whatever it might be, and believing that you can change the environment you're in sort of starts off with an awareness of the fact that of the environment, and B, the fact that you have that choice. And so yeah, so with my kids, I try and create an environment where they can be themselves as far as possible, and they can challenge what Mum and Dad says and laugh at them.
So what I love is that I feel like you are embodying Maslow's hierarchy of needs with your new heat, underfloor heating and renewables. You're servicing the physiological needs right at the bottom of giving us, great warmth and shelter and providing that for the home. And then from the people with purpose element with the podcast, you're coming in at this self-actualization and improvement from that perspective, and everything that gets sandwiched in between. How does that sit with you?
Well, I've never thought about that before. That's good if that's the impact that I'm having. I think the thing about Maslow is quite interesting, because I don't know all the ins and outs of this, because I'm the kind of person that takes bits and uses it and then forgets the other stuff and merges things together. But the hierarchy almost kind of suggests that you've got to have all of the first bit sorted before you can go on to the next bit, and before you can go on to the next bit, because it is, isn't it? It's about shelter, and then it's about that goes up to sort of food and drink and belonging and all those sorts of things. I don't quite know how, but it's then self-actualization. But I think you can color in different bits of the pyramid all in one go, and you can self-actualize as well in some parts of your life, while other parts of your life might not necessarily be where they need to be. Now, not consistently, perhaps, and having to dial up a lot more energy than you would otherwise have had to dial up, because perhaps those foundations aren't in place. But no one's perfect, and I think sometimes being perfect or trying to be perfect can prevent you from taking that next step in your head towards self-actualization. And self-actualization does actually feature in a version of my sort of life purpose. Because if I want to empower, inspire, and energize others to grow, it's growing towards self-actualization, and that's through creating a culture of intention and, helping people to find their purpose and put a plan in place to go about executing on that, so they can be happy, successful, and fulfilled. So self-actualization actually features in it. So hopefully, I'm helping a little bit with that.
And you mentioning there about having the plan in place to be happy, successful, and fulfilled. What happens if you don't have a purpose? What happens if you don't have that plan? Does that mean that you can't be happy, successful, and fulfilled?
And that's a very, very interesting question, because on a personal level, I don't think I could be happy without that. But I'm not everyone. And having a plan, okay, so some people have a plan for the day, some people have a plan for the week, and some people have a plan for a lifetime. So I've got a life plan, and I find that helps me because that gives me a direction, and the progress towards that is what gives me that fulfillment. So so from my point of view, I find that really helps. But I know quite a lot of happy people who don't have the same kind of plan that I've got. They've got a more immediate term goal that they're making progress towards. I think what's interesting is when you encounter people who say they aren't happy. Quite often, if you ask a couple of questions of those people, part of the reason that they're not happy or as happy as they want to be is because either they don't have the direction, they don't really know where they're going, or they're not making enough progress towards it. It normally sits in one of those two camps. So then, when I'm coaching people, I'm trying to tease out what kind of an aspiration they need to give them that little bit of energy to take that next step, or to get that bit of clarity that says, okay, well, this is what I need to do next, or by this time next year I need to be there, depending on what suits them. Because I did make the assumption for quite a number of years that because I thought a certain way, everybody else would think a certain way. And it's just not the case. It's just not the case. And you can spend a lot of your time. There's people who say you can't help somebody who doesn't want to be helped. And being coachable is an important thing to be if you want to grow and develop and go in a certain direction. And that is very true. So your role then is to sort of, I suppose, open the door just a little bit so people can see that there's perhaps a different way of thinking or feeling about things. And so everyone's in a different place. But back to your question, for me, without a plan and seeing some sort of progress towards that, then I would struggle to be happy, certainly.
So I have my strapline is have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why. We're clear on what the have a purpose bit is and have a plan. What does the focus element mean for you, David?
Focus. So I suppose there's the wheel of life thing, isn't there? So the wheel of life talks about the different aspects of life. So work or mission, friends, family, finances, personal development, and your sort of spiritual development. I think there's about eight different things. There's different versions of it, and I think taking a bit of time to think about the different facets of life and think about what's most important to me right now, or where is it that I need to make a change, or what is it that I'm unhappy about right now, and thinking about it like that. And then it's about investing time in that above anything else. So for me, I am comfortable at the moment with the amount of time that I'm investing in New Heat. I'm comfortable with the amount of time that I'm investing in the podcast. But for me personally, I would like to be spending more quality time with my wife and with my children. And given my children are 16 or 18, that's fine. But they might not want to spend that time with me. But I think it's about, again, a regular review or a regular thought process, just to check in and just to say, okay, am I happy with where I'm investing my time? Because time's all we've got. So we need to use it wisely. And some of that's just leisure and recreation, some of that sometimes it's health. So I'm remembering the other bits on the wheel of life now. So there's a recreation, and then there's health as well. And so, yeah, it's about that check. And I have to, because I can be quite easily distracted. I'm a sort of a emotional feeler type person. If you think about Jung's sort of psychological theories, and which means I can be quite easily distracted. And so I have to have little kind of reminders to help me. And so I've got a little diary reminder that goes off that says inspire, empower, energize, because it just reminds me. And I've got another little reminder that goes off to remind me to coach instead of telling people what to do. I've got another reminder that says date night. So, and also I've got another reminder that says ring mum and dad. And actually, my dad will hopefully laugh at this if he listens to this. I was sat in the car with my dad the other day, and a reminder popped up saying ring mum and pa. But if I don't have these reminders, it's just that I get distracted. It's not that I don't care. It's just that I get distracted. And so remembering or having a reminder helps me to sort of stay focused, because it gives me that kind of little nudge I need to keep me in the right direction. And when I review my life plan twice a year and my values, I also review all of those reminders. So those reminders will change as well to reflect what it is I need to focus on at that period in time. And then I let it run for a while, and I see how that works for me. And one I found it really helpful as a book is the 12-week year. Which I think we might have spoken about before, I'm not sure. But the 12-week year I find really helps me because it helps a bit with that energy, but it also helps with little kind of mechanisms that you can use just to sort of keep you on track. And the idea of a year lasting 12 weeks rather than 12 months. The human brain can cope with 90 days. After that, it loses focus a little bit. So refreshing and renewing that focus every 90 days, it is also helpful to sort of stay on track with where you are.
So you mentioned earlier that you have a desire to make a difference, to create meaningful change. What is it that you're looking to change, and essentially why?
Okay, so I have this sort of feeling that if more people could be more conscious of their purpose, and as a result of that, they were aware of their purpose, and they therefore went about looking to fulfill it, then the world would be a much better place. Because all of the energy that there is in people. I suppose one thing that made me think about this was when Dominic Cummings and that whole kind of Barnard Castle thing happened. We all sat around and watched him come on the news, and I think it was half an hour late, and then but nearly 5 million people have watched that. So they've sat and waited for him to come on. Then he's spoken for half an hour. That's 5 million hours, which equates to about 1,000 years worth of time. So so that for me is a huge waste of time. Now I understand why people wanted to watch that, but if you think collectively about the amount of time that we have as humankind, and the amount of good that we could do with that time, then that little bit of awareness and a little bit of a recognition that, okay, that there is a meaningful purpose for my life. It doesn't have to be a massive thing. It can be, you don't have to change the world or find a cure for some global disease or anything. It can be something that you do on a really local scale. And in fact, hyperlocalism is more important than ever. Doing stuff for your neighbor and all of that. So yes, I think if more people had that kind of thought process, then the world would be a better place, and the people in it would be a lot more happy, successful, and fulfilled. So that's kind of what drives me, really.
Yeah, I'm with you on the whole. A lot of people will think that this purpose piece in their life has to be huge, and absolutely not. My purpose, very similar to yours, is simply to shine the light on people's purpose, to help them to take action, to create life with purpose. It is simple in its message, but the reality of that is, a lot of work. And it is, which is why we both have our podcast all about purpose, because we can reach more people, we can share our learnings. And for both of us, we've got this plan to create a book, and it is a cathartic process. So, we're very much aligned, David, in what our methods are in terms of bringing together these different not same desires, but in different elements. We're all very different. Tell me about going back to the emotional element. You mentioned that you're one of those people in the theatre or the cinema that is the one that's always crying. I'm with you there. I don't hide it so much. Well, I'm not able to hide it so much because it's ridiculous how much I cry at everything. I really do. I cry. I'm very compassionate when I'm watching television or film or at the theatre. Talk to me about the emotions and the feelings.
So so I don't know. I think you kind of, well, for me anyway, I find myself getting caught up in a story. If it's a story that compels me, I find myself getting caught up in that, and so you end up living the experience to a certain degree, whilst also knowing that you're watching something that is fictitious. It's a play or whatever. But so in that scenario, there's a bit about getting caught up with the story, but there's also the fact that you feel good. You feel good. You feel happy for the person that's doing the performance. But I also remember a scenario at work where somebody who was in my team got an award for being the star of the year, and I knew that person had worked so hard to and really challenged themselves to bring something different, and they were really passionate about what they did, and they got this third party recognition, and in the form of an award. At New Heat now, we're very focused on customer service, and we're members of the Institute of Customer Service, and we have something called the Service Mark, which is the UK's signature customer service accreditation, and we've got that with distinction. And we've focused on service. A lot of people have put a lot of effort in, and we have a mechanism whereby we give each other recognition. So if there's good customer feedback, or if somebody does something from one team to help another, or somebody helps a colleague out, there's recognition feedback. We put it on a system, and then we've got a team called the Customer Service Focus Group, who are people who work in the teams, who then review all of the feedback and then make a decision about who's going to be our customer champion for that month. And it's the best part of my job, is going and seeing that person, and I just generally surprise them at their desk, or I would phone them over Teams if we're working remotely or whatever it is, and just say, congratulations, you've been recognized as this month's customer champion. And so often that recognition, that gratitude makes such a difference to those people. I don't cry when I'm given that, but it is definitely the best part of my job. And so seeing other people succeed, and sometimes it can be quite a simple thing, but they've gone the extra mile. Sometimes it can be a really big thing, and they've driven miles to solve a customer's problem. But it's always the thing that never ceases to amaze me is people's desire to do the right thing by the people, and then when that gets recognised, they don't do it for the recognition. But when it gets recognized, it feels great to know that somebody's noticed, and again, that's all part of lifting everybody up to that level. So it's important. Emotions are a funny old thing. They're important to manage, but it's very, very important to listen to and be aware of feelings. And like I say, it's about taking that energy and harnessing that as a force for good, and then being very mindful about emotional energy when it's going to do harm or distract or get in the way. So being conscious of that is a very, very helpful thing.
And you mentioned there about the recognition of service and the gratitude that comes with that, and the contribution piece. And that's what I want to pick up on, is the contribution piece that you want to leave, that you want to deliver consciously now. Tell me more about what that is.
So contribution as in
the service. So you're talking about making a difference, and we said, as you know, it doesn't have to be huge, but what does the contribution piece, what is the legacy that you want to leave behind? You've mentioned a book, you've got your podcast, and the work that you're doing daily. What is it that you want to be remembered for?
So I do want to be remembered as somebody that helps other people to find their purpose. And I suppose I've written an obituary. I can't remember exactly my own obituary. I can't remember exactly what the words that I chose, but to be remembered as somebody who helps others to find their purpose in life, and actually to make it happen. That's the thing, because I think quite often you can find your mission, or you can find your what you think your calling is. But then it's knowing about how to go about doing it and implementation. And then the best bit of my job is helping other people to be successful. And you praise effort along the journey, and you recognize and celebrate the effort that people put in, because that's what then turns into the results that they get. You praise the results as well, but don't just praise the results, praise the effort and the energy. So I'm keen to make sure that I help as many people as I can to find their purpose and actually go about doing something with it and making a meaningful change. That's kind of what I want to do. When it comes to my children, I want again, they're both going through exams right now, so there's quite a lot of pressure. But the most important thing for me is that they grow up to be socially confident and decent human beings, who've got integrity, and who've got care, and who've got resilience, and with their own focus. Now, I can't expect them to have that now, because obviously they're spending too much time laughing at me about banging on about it, or working out what mine is. But over time, my hope is that there'll be that little bit of osmosis, so they will be able to be socially confident people, because we all rely on each other. There's no one that does anything on their own. If you're on a team, you've got teammates that you're working with who are better at some stuff than you, and vice versa. You need each other. If you are looking to run a business, you need people to buy your product or service, and you can't do it if no one's buying it. And you need people to supply it. You're working with partners, you're working with other people. So that whole socially confident bit is a bit about being able to build healthy relationships with others, because we're a sociable species, us human beings. So whether it's in a work context or in a social context or whatever, it's been able to move with confidence in those circles. That's kind of what I want to help my children to be.
And again, I'm only going to relate to everything you say. And I remember back when sort of 2016, I remember speaking to the family and saying, "This is my plan. This is what I'm up to. This is my vision. Everybody else, would you like to do visions and goal map and plan? What do you like to do?" And they all looked at me as though I'd gone crazy. And so I just sort of buried my head and kept focused on what I had to do. And I know that by just, as you say, osmosis, it has happened. And it's by no accident that, the children have become focused. They've got that, they are socially confident. My daughter was head student. She's gone off to university now. My son's just been made the first team rugby captain of the school. And those things happen because they've got empathy. They've got that awareness of others. They know how to serve. They know how to lead. And they are resilient. And yes, my goodness, they've gone through, 2 years of lockdown and change and everything. But absolutely, David, I'm with you. I know that the purpose piece is there. And yeah, they laugh at me too sometimes. And I think that's part of the parent-child role. But I know that they're laughing at the right things, that it is going in and that they're there. And they have the whole, mum does a podcast called Focus on Why, and they have a giggle and stuff. But then a lot of people see that and hear that. And then they say, especially when they get feedback from their friends, "Oh yeah, I listened to that episode. That was really good." And so that's what you want, right?
Absolutely. And it also, it kind of, it's evidence. Well, firstly, congratulations, because it sounds like some great achievements going on in the Rowlinson household. But also, what it does is it provides that bit of affirmation that actually, if you believe that's what you should be doing, then you absolutely have to go about it. And because I've had feedback from people that I didn't expect to get feedback from, people that I didn't even know, really, saying that's really helped me. And so just because something isn't resonating with somebody at a point in time doesn't necessarily mean to say that it's not going in. It's the same with social media. You never know who's watching. Some people like and share and comment on posts. Most people don't. And when you put yourself out there, either by doing something differently with your family or by going out, to go in public on social media or at work, you go for a promotion and you get a promotion, and then crikey, how am I going to do this job then? But you're stretching that comfort zone that you're in, and you will be making a positive difference for people if you know what you're doing is being true to yourself. And that's, again, another reason why the whole purpose thing is important. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't matter. It can be something that seems so simple or so unimportant at the time. But if that's your truth, then you've got to listen to your truth, and you've got to pursue it, because it might be that and we're all here for a reason. It might be that you're here to help just one other person on this planet, and if that's the case, then if you don't do your bit because you're uniquely you, potentially there's a risk that person won't get the help that they need, and what they were going to do was going to be something monumental. So you've got to think about that. I mean, you've talked to me before about the ripple effect. You've got to think about the fact that it might seem small to you. That's probably your humility talking, and it's great to be humble, but you've still got to do it, because if you do nothing in humility, then you're still doing nothing. But if you do something in humility, then you could be making a massive difference. And and it's like I say, it can be in any field or in any kind of sphere of that wheel of life topics. But if you feel compelled to do it, you have to do it.
Wow. And what a great way to sort of round off this conversation, David. You have talked about the wheel of life. You have talked about making it happen. You've talked about inspire, empower, and energize, and being true to yourself. How will people get in contact with you? Because I'm sure they want to continue the conversation.
Well, so I'm on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn's probably the best place to get hold of me. And if people would like to connect me on Facebook, there's only about 48 million David Robertses. But I'm the bull with my glasses. I've actually put a picture on that actually looks a bit like me now, and I've also got a Facebook page. But that's probably the best thing to do, is to find me on LinkedIn or on Facebook, and follow the People with Purpose podcast.
Absolutely. Well, I'll make sure all of those links go into the show notes so that you can find the right David Roberts, because there is only one, really. So,
that's very kind of you say so.
Thank you so much for sharing why you do what you do. David, have you got some final words for the audience, please?
So if you can find your purpose, you can find the key to unlock your best life. So that's what I believe. And sometimes we all just need a little bit of help. So don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to try it, and don't be afraid of what other people might think, because you should listen to feedback, but you've still got the choice to make about what you do with it. And if you feel really compelled to do something, then you must do it. And I believe the best way to be somebody is actually to serve somebody else. So if you think about it from that point of view, and be thankful for the opportunity, because time's all we got, so make the most of it.
How has this conversation had an impact on you? What value have you received from tuning in? What are your reflections with actions? Please take a moment to leave me an Apple Podcast or Spotify review sharing how Focus on Why has made a difference to you today. Remember, the conversation doesn't end here. To keep it going, simply connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook or Twitter, or join the Focus on Why Facebook group. All the links are in the show notes. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why.